This is Lois Whaley for Women Today and Yesterday. On October 13th, Alexa Ross and I went to Columbus to the Public Policy Luncheon of Action Ohio for Battered Women, which had as its main speaker Congresswoman the Honorable Joyce Beatty, 3rd District, Ohio, the Columbus area, actually. And she gave a really wonderful talk, stunning is the word, about the need for women to come from the hallway into the room. From the hallway looking in, and the room where powerful things are done. I also want to mention that Ohio Women Incorporated on Saturday, November 14th, is having a statewide meeting of women leaders in Columbus at the Upper Arlington Library. And for more information, you can contact me, Lois Whaley, at 740-593-7668. That's November 14th for Ohio women leaders to make plans for 2016's International Women's Day, which is in March. So this is, of course, as always, Women Today and Yesterday. Thank you.
Greetings on behalf of the Ohio Council of YWCA. It is because of the Ohio Council of YWCA that you are here today. On October 10th, 1975, the Ohio Council of YWCA authorized Helen Warner Mulholland to chair an ad hoc committee to study the unmet needs of young women. Members of that committee, and I'm going to read their names because a lot of you know some of these women. Grace Williams, Dottie Anderson, Helen Russell, Marilyn Herring, Mary Worley, Sally Sharp, Edie Reed, Linda Hengst, and Ann Gilbert were invited to serve on the committee. On May 6th, after several meetings, on May 6th in 1976, Helen Mulholland reported to the council the findings of the committee, which focused on the unmet needs, and of all the unmet needs that they discussed for almost a year in their meetings, the one that they brought forth to the council was the needs of physically or abused wives and battered and abused teenage girls. And thus started the Domestic Violence Network in the state of Ohio. The motion was received and adopted by Ohio Council, and following the approval from Council, action was born. They amended their motion because they were very detail-oriented women, and the first motion said to establish a haven for women and girls. They amended the motion to say that they didn't want to establish it, but they wanted to empower an organization to establish that network. And so that is where Action Ohio had its origins. Linda is going to be speaking to you about Grace Williams, and Grace is the person, she's the reason for the occasion. But it's also worth noting, talking about Helen Mulholland. Both Helen and Grace are members of the Ohio Women's Hall of Fame. They are our superstars in the pantheon of Ohio women. Helen Mulholland was 4'10". Yeah, 4'10". Silver white hair piled on top of her hair in a bun with dirndl curls framing her face. She had blue eyes, the colors of opals, that actually twinkled. She was small in stature, but gigantic in her presence. She was a lobbyist, an activist, and a pacifist, which made her so compelling. She intimidated men. Her language wasn't crude, but it was also not ladylike. Especially when describing violence against women, gun violence, and the inherent evils of theocracy. She was also very, very pro-choice. She didn't say YWCA, she says YWCA. Remember that? YWCA. And she would point. And she would, when she was speaking her truth, it was as if she were saying a sermon, and you were glad to be one of her disciples. Helen was the executive director of my YWCA in Leary on 2 occasions, and also the Mansfield YWCA. I didn't have the honor of working with her on staff, but when I became new to the YWCA, Helen had already been greatly involved in Ohio Council, and I became greatly involved. So it was a pleasure for me to see Helen and Grace working together. Those 2 women epitomized what I believe inclusion meant. Neither thought that their agenda was more important than the other. Neither thought that their race or background gave them entitlement over the other. And both knew that unless they acted their truth and their passion, things would not change for women. Council met many years and many times at the Clintonville Women's Club, at the YWCA of Columbus, Presbyterian Church on Broad Street. Helen made many friends through the YWCA, but I think her greatest and lasting friendship was the one that she had with Grace Williams, because again, without those 2 women, we would not be here today. Thank you.
Janine is absolutely right. Without Helen, we wouldn't be here. But her cohort, one of her best friends, and one of the strongest women I ever met was Grace Williams. Grace was a mentor to many, a role model for all the people she worked with. She also was not a really tall woman. But when she stood by Helen, she looked really tall. And especially when she wore, does anybody remember Helen, or Grace in here? Do you remember her shoes?
Yes.
She was known for her shoes. Now, you know, we see a lot of these nice spiky heels now. Well, Grace set the standard way before, in much earlier generations. So she was a giant, even though I don't think she was over 5 foot tall. She could roar like a lion, and she had the heart of a lamb. I had the privilege of watching she and Helen interact. When they agreed and when they disagreed, and how they could come together as a force and bring others with them to impact the state of Ohio. Helen was involved with the legislature, as was Grace. And many times Grace would go on her own in terms of advocating for domestic violence victims, literacy for children, for the elimination of racism, for providing food for the hungry and shelter for those who were homeless. Who was Grace Williams? Well, she was born in 1919 in Williams, West Virginia. She attended segregated schools throughout high school. Following high school, she attended the League of Practical Nursing Schools in West Virginia. She then moved to Columbus in 1943. And her first job was working on the Pennsylvania Railroad, lubricating trains. Grace met her husband Howard there. They both worked for the railroad. Grace developed an allergy to the lubricants and had to eventually leave the railroad in that particular job. But one of the things she did when she first arrived in Columbus was join the YWCA in 1944. She was a trailblazer for many, many, many women and many activities of the YW. Grace died in June of 2002 at age 82. She was involved in many community organizations. She was a fearless fighter against racism and for the empowerment of women. Before shelters existed, Grace took women and their children into her home. She never talked much about it, except those that did know Grace knew she did not go to bed early. I can remember many conversations between midnight and 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock with Grace. Finally I said, Grace, I have to go to bed. I have to go to work tomorrow. Oh, well, okay. She was often nursing the wounds, both physical and emotional, for women who had escaped their homes. Action was formed and Helen moved on to work with the Religious Coalition for Abortion Rights. And Grace stayed with Action. She was the board president, she was a benefactor of Action, a constant advocate, and a lobbyist for Action. So without Grace, I don't know where we would be today as far as Action. But I'd like to say right now, the one person that has continued Grace's work and Grace's legacy is Phyllis Carlson Lane. Of Helen Mulholland, with your small stature and your fearless ability to keep fighting no matter what the opposition and hurdles might be. Thank you for picking up on the torch that Helen and Grace lit 40 years ago and for carrying us to today.
First babysitter from the moment of birth until Miss Grace passed away. She was her one and only child care provider, and we loved her like a family member. So we missed her dearly. I am honored today to have been asked to introduce our dynamic speaker for the 2015 Action Ohio Coalition for Battered Women's Annual Public Policy Luncheon. Wait, that's a mouthful. None other than Congresswoman Joyce Beatty. Most of you in this room have probably heard Representative Beatty speak before. However, each time she speaks, her passion, her commitment, her love for America and for Ohio just fills up the room. When women succeed, America succeeds. You all heard that before? You know where that phrase came from? And she even allowed President Obama to use it as part of his State of the Union address. Yes, our very own Representative Joyce Beatty, serving her second term in the U.S. Congress from the 3rd Ohio Congressional District. She succeeds so all of Ohio women can succeed. Representative Beatty succeeded when she secured $4 million in federal funds to address Columbus's infant mortality rate, which is one of the highest in the country. Representative Beatty succeeded when the President signed into law a bill that included reducing the instances and impacts of child sex trafficking victims and decriminalizing the behavior of trafficking victims and making it easier for citizens to report incidences to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children's cyber tip line. And Representative Beatty succeeded when she cast her vote for the final passage of the Reauthorization of the Violence Against Women Act. And Representative Beatty continues to succeed when she speaks before Congress to strongly, passionately, and boldly continue to advocate for the Paycheck Fairness Act to ensure equal pay for equal work for women and their families. So you see, when Representative Beatty succeeds, all women succeed, and America does succeed. Prior to her service in the U.S. House of Representatives, Representative Beatty served in the 27th House District of the Ohio House of Representatives. And during her 5-year tenure, she rose to become the first female Democratic House leader in Ohio's history, and was instrumental in passing legislation that improved the climate for economic development for our state. Again, so women can succeed. Representative Beatty has received numerous awards and honors, including the YWCA Columbus Women of Achievement Award. I and my coalition sisters are proud to claim her as a member of the National Coalition of 100 Black Women, Inc. Central Ohio chapter. And we want to personally thank you for attending our National Legislative Day in Washington and for making sure that the National Coalition members had a seat in the gallery for the final vote to confirm Loretta Lynch as our U.S. Attorney General. We thank you for that. So it is my pleasure to present to the 2015 Action Ohio Coalition for Battered Women Public Policy Luncheon, a woman who works every day to make sure all women succeed, our own Representative Joyce Beatty.
Wow, that's exactly the kind of thing she was talking about. But she's my friend, so let me say, my friend, thank you for all the work that you do, for all the work that you have done in the past, and certainly it is my honor to be here today, having you to introduce me, and being an honorary member with so many of what I'm going to call my girlfriends, because there's nothing like having friends. When you're in need of someone to give you advice, to stand with you, to be in the battle, who do you call first? You call on friends. So today we're going to have a conversation about friends, and I'm going to apologize, I sound a little nasal. I'm struggling with a new allergy. At my age, they found something that I'm allergic to, and so I'm struggling with that. But I would also certainly be remiss if I did not join Linda and others, Phyllis, in thanking you for being a trailblazer, for thanking you for being an executive director and doing so much for not only the women in the room and the few brave men that we have here today, but also for what you do every day for this community, for Central Ohio, and for the nation. Your work has not gone unnoticed. Join me in giving her a rousing applause. You know, I'm not 4'10" or small in stature, but I got that gray hair part going on. And I certainly try to be an activist. And so, you know, because there's so many leaders in this room, as you come to give a presentation, I have a wonderful staff. They write all this stuff that they want you to say and talk about, and then you look at the room and you say, well, they already know all this because they do it, they live it. Then Linda introduces you and tells you all the stuff that you've done. So I'm glad I wasn't going to do that anyway. You know, about 5 minutes ago, I decided that I was just going to be me. So today, you're going to get something that's just me. Now, the real story is Phyllis told me don't come in here and talk about all that legislative stuff, and don't come in here and talk about all the stuff that we do. She wanted me to leave you with a message and to tell my story and to be inspiring. And I thought, wow, maybe I better go back to what the staff gave me to do. But then I heard so much today. You know, I walked in here and saw a longtime friend, Iris, and I had not read the book, so I bought the book because part of my story today will be about women also uplifting other women. Yeah. It'll be about women supporting women. and women repeating things that other women have said and done. So, I turned to Linda and I said, have you read this book? And she said, yes. And the format is great and it tells stories. So, being the scholar and the quick learner I am, Iris, I'm going to start my message out by quoting from page 70 in your book. Now, had I not told you I hadn't read the book and just bought it today, I would have sounded pretty scholarly if I said, God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and sound mind. Now, while that's on page 70 in her book, I know that comes from the 2nd chapter of Timothy. Now, why do I use that? Because it fits right in with the message that I want to give you. And that is the message of power. And women no longer having the fear. And so it's a great segue when we talk about the legislation, we talk about the stories, we talk about the journeys and the challenges that we've been on. So today I thought I would tell a little bit about my story. Because my story is your story. There's not a big difference from the story. Now, years ago, I decided that I was going to start describing myself in a special way. I was going to say that I'm strategic. I thought I'd start with that first before saying I'm smart, So I thought I'd say I'm strategic, I'm smart, I have a great presentation and a stance from entering the room. Now, that was all the stuff I made up about myself. And so what happened one day, we all have people who have mentored us outside of the family. So a lady by the name of Charity Early, who wrote a book called One Woman Army, said to me, little girl, I don't know if you're smart, I don't know if you have a good presentation, and I don't know about this stature or anything else. She said, but I kind of like you. And that was the start, because I told her that crazy stuff. I went and I said, Mrs. Early, she said, why should you go to this luncheon? And I said, because I think I'm strategic, and I'm smart, and I think I have a good presentation. And then she gave me the response. Fast forwarding to a couple months later, she said, why do you think you should be at the head table at this presentation? And I thought, I don't know if I should say that same stuff I said to her last year. So I came up with this on the spot. I said, because I've been standing in the hallway, and I want to be in the room. Yeah. And so she turned to me and she said, I like that. And just as I was getting ready to get all cocky and start smiling, she said, well, what have you done in the hallway that makes you deserve to be in the room? Then I fell back on that being strategic and smart and good presentation. So I said, I've been working the hallway. And she said, what does that mean? And I said, well, I've been meeting with people. I've been studying the issues. I've been writing letters. And I've been very positive about everything because I want to be in the room. And so she said, well, what's your issue? I said, women. She said, I like that. I thought to myself, good, because I just made that up on the spot. Because I figured if she asked me anything about women, I would be able to tell my story, and somehow this wonderful story would come to mind. Now, when the luncheon was over, she asked me, tell me your story. And I thought, wow, why is this woman messing with me? But isn't that what we do? So I said to her, and I'm going to tell you part of this story, if you don't mind, to use my time this way to hopefully let you see that my story is not any different than the story. It might be just in a different area. My story is not one of abuse, but my story is a story of learning, a story of progress. And were there challenges along the way? Absolutely. So the story goes like this. When I was a little girl, I didn't know what I wanted to be, but I am the granddaughter of a Baptist minister, which makes me kind of a PK, even though it's really a grand PK. For those of you who don't know what that means, it means a preacher's kid. So my mother was the true preacher's kid, and I was far from the true granddaughter of a preacher. Bottom line, I was bad. And my mother was very proper and very good and very quiet, none of which I was. And so my story starts like this. I wanted to be in charge. And I didn't know what I wanted to be in charge of at 8, but I'd line all my doll babies up. And then I would preach and or lecture to them. I would pull out the Bible as my text, and I would start reading to them. And one day my grandmother was behind me and saw me doing this. Needless to say, I didn't play that game anymore. She did not think that game was too funny, because I was probably messing up all the stuff in the Bible, because I already told you I was bad. But what that did was, it made her make me go to church, literally, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday for choir practice, and I couldn't even sing. And then Sunday all day. But you know what that did? I took it as punishment for the first year, because she associated it with me being bad with my dolls by scolding them and telling them to stand up straight. I was only repeating all the stuff that they had done to me. And so she realized that I needed a little help. And so for me, it started out in the church, because that taught me structure and discipline, but it made me read. And so when you mentor and you talk to young folks, reading and having a sense of structure, doesn't matter what it is so important to that first level. And so as the story goes on, I think I did okay. I had a lot of help, and I went from the hallway to the room. And along the way, I had great jobs, always a female giving me advice. And then I became the first Democratic leader in the state of Ohio. And I like saying that because I like the follow-up statement better. It is not good to brag about being the first if there is not a second and a third and a fourth and a fifth. So when people tell you that, you know, make sure, because Grace would want us to say that. She was the first, but look at all the people that raised their hands. Look at all the stories that are told about women who came before us. That's because they provided the seconds and the thirds and the fourths. And so after I did that and a female followed me, I went to The Ohio State University, largest 4-year institution in the country. Again, here I go. First time, not only did they have a female to serve on the cabinet of 6, first time they had a black woman to be in that position. So now I'm earned gray hair, African American and female, sitting at the table making major deals for almost 70,000 students and some 40,000 employees. It was one of the best experiences I had, because I didn't have a background. It reminded me of the days being in the hallway. See how you go back to your past and remember how to bring things forward? But I was no longer in the hallway. I was in the room. So what did I do? I called 5 women that I thought had been in the room and asked them for advice. And the first woman was Charity Early. And Charity Early said to me, when you're in the room with the men, because for the most part, you're going to be in the room with the men. She said, sit at the table, look them in the eye, go toe-to-toe with them, but always act like a lady. And she said, that will get you the respect, and it'll give you time to get yourself in order, because they will be giving you respect. So now to that whole thing about strategy and hard work and reading comes the whole thing of demanding respect, because that puts you in a whole nother category. So there I am, strategic, smart, getting the respect. I've been there for 3.5 years. I just brokered a $30 million deal with Battelle and The Ohio State University. Now I think somebody ought to be saying thank you to me. In the room with the mayor's there, Les Wexner's there, he's chairman of the board of Ohio State, President Gee is there, everybody's clapping, the meeting's over. I even wore my black suit, white shirt, pearls, did everything I thought that was right on that presentation part. And they get up and President Gee, my boss, says to me, I'd like to see you in the mayor's conference room if you don't mind. I'm like, okay. He gets up, the mayor gets up, Les gets up. I'm still sitting there. The mayor comes out and he says, hey, they really want to talk to you. I'm like, Nobody's smiling. That didn't seem pretty good. But you know, I'm back to I'm smart. I got that good presentation. I start thinking about them being my little doll babies lined up. So I walk in the room. I'm standing all straight, and I said, okay. Everybody's looking like we're at a funeral. And my boss looks at me and says, we want you to leave the university. Right. That was the first thing that I did out loud. $30 million deal. You know, in nanoseconds you start thinking, $30 million deal I just brokered for them, and I'm female and black, and you get ready to fire me? Sometimes we get ahead of ourselves. And I guess they sensed that I was getting ready to go into the sister head problem. That quickly Mayor Coleman said, because we want you to run for the United States Congress. Because if you could broker a $30 million deal, we know you understand how to broker $1 trillion deals. I didn't know what to do for the first time in my life. See, I was stuck. That's something we have to remember. I let it get in my head, a negative versus a positive. And this was later in my life when I should have realized, don't start putting the negatives in your head automatically when you think something's going wrong. But you know, I went back to the hallway and I regrouped and I said, I don't think so. I thought that sounded pretty good since I had the best job I'd ever had in my life, and I realized that they realized that they needed me, and if they thought I could broker $1 trillion, I might get a little more money staying at Ohio State. How's that for strategy? And so Gordon stood up and said, and we'll talk about it further, because I don't think so is not the answer we want to hear. Now nobody taught me what to do with that in the hallway. And since I had never been in a room this big, sometimes you understand, or it comes to you that you don't know what to do. So what do? You call your girlfriend. So I said, okay, can we talk about this tomorrow, please? You get a humble. And so then I call my girlfriends that night, and they're like, are you crazy? Girl, I think you ought to do it. Well, what do they really do in Congress? I don't know. So that wasn't too helpful. So you know what we do, no matter what your religion is or who you pray to or look up to, you know, you go to bed that night and say, well, and you kind of look up and say, I know I haven't done this as much as I should have, but I need you to give me some kind of sign. Because see, when you are PK's children, they tell you, you never pray for something. You pray for others, you pray for forgiveness, but you don't ever pray for the big ask. You know, so I said, you know, give me some kind of sign. Well, I go to bed and I'm, you know, waking up like, no sign is coming. And the next morning the phone rings at 7 o'clock. And it's President Gay. And he said, can you get here at 8 o'clock and be in my office? And I said, okay. And then something said, that was your sign. I didn't have an answer. So to make a long story short, I go in, you know, I do all that stuff about being in the hallway, being in the room, and the bottom line is I run for Congress. So somewhere along the line, as women, we take the challenge. And that's what I did. I took the challenge. Sometimes you don't know what the road ahead is going to bring to you. But if you work that hallway, and you remember to lift up those who look like you and don't look like you, if you remember to be humble and ask for respect and not think that you know everything, things will come together, even when there are challenges. Most of you know that now, 15 years ago, and it seems like yesterday, I had a cerebral brainstem stroke. And I was told that I would never walk or talk again. I went back to work in a wheelchair. I remember the day my husband came home with my electric wheelchair. It was just like somebody had given me a brand new car because it was freedom. But you know, I tell this story because I never looked up and said, why me? I never asked to walk again directly. Now, I'm not perfect. So I said, I sure would like to be able to walk and say my words with it. So if there's some sign you can give me. And so you know what happened the next day? A lot of therapists came in. And I wasn't a morning person. They said, okay, therapy starts at 5:30. I'm thinking, well, I can't walk anyway. I'm not doing that. But then again, it was like, maybe this is that sign and I better go to therapy. So let me tell you what I did. Every day I beat the game. I got up at 5 o'clock when the therapist came that I did not like at all. I smiled and I said, I'm ready for you. So the game was, I was going to beat the therapist. But really what I was doing was saving myself. So sometimes we have to take the challenge. Clearly I wear 2-inch heels today. I don't cover the scars on the back of my legs cosmetically because it reminds me that somebody bigger than me decided that I was walking and talking for a reason. So I tell the story. I'm going to take about 5 more minutes and wrap this up and allow you for questions. So in life you have to have some fun. You have to smile a lot. I had a cerebral brainstem stroke. I had to take physical therapy and speech therapy because if you knew me before, well, you can tell the difference. Now I store up in nanoseconds things that you don't think about. You just start talking. That doesn't happen to me anymore. So what happened was I was able to go in, a physician comes in, he's got on something that looks like an umpire's uniform, he's got mittens on his head, and he said, we're going to try this new therapy for you, and it's called an electric shock treatment. I'm like, okay, because I had already had this, when you have a stroke, you have the stroke droop. And so either your mouth goes down and then they take it out and it goes straight out. Well, I would take lipstick and draw it all the way out like that, like my mouth was, so I wouldn't feel sorry for myself. Now, my family didn't think that was too funny. But, in life you have to laugh sometimes so you don't get bogged down with always feeling sorry for yourself. You need to uplift yourself. So to make a long story short, the therapist said to me, are you up for the treatment? I'm Joyce Beatty. Sure, I'm up for the treatment. Then I say something profound and brilliant like, will this hurt? And he says, you know anything about fastball? When the hard ball hits the bat and it's going about 125 miles an hour, he said, that's pretty much what it's going to feel like. I said, I'm not doing that. Well, the rest of the story is he marks up my face, he does it, my eyes pop out, water literally comes out because, it is just so powerful. And I'm like, I can't do this. I'm struggling, I can't do this. And he said, but I think it's going to work. So here is the whole thing about power, ending where I started. Here's the whole thing about not being afraid, and that it's not about you. There is somebody who's sending you this message. So I said, okay, let's do it. And so he does it. It is the most painful thing I have ever experienced in my life. When we got through with the 5th session, I said something else brilliant like, are there going to be any side effects to this? He looked me straight in the eye and he said, yes. And so then being the smart person I am, I said, can you tell me what the side effects are? And he looked at me again straight and he said, yes, it tends to take the lines out of your face. So I said, then could you do the other side? So see the power of women. So I tell you those stories to let you know that my life has not been one that's perfect. My life has not been one without challenges. But because I've been able to master those challenges thanks to women like you in the room, it has allowed me, and I won't have to say the things that I have done, because Linda mentioned them in the introduction. And it has helped me to have a better understanding of women. It has helped me to always be able to say the 2 most powerful words that I could ever say to anyone. And my mother taught me that. And those 2 words are, thank you. And I say, thank you for being women. Thank you for what you do with the YWCA. Thank you for what you do with battered women. Thank you for what you do with educating our children. Just thank you for being you. Now, my father knew me a little better than my mother. And so he said, I like that. Teaching women the power of 2 words. And he said, so I know Joyce extremely well, so I'm going to teach her that I think the most powerful 2 words she can say. And here's what my daddy said I needed to learn, and that's, I'm sorry. So my game is to say thank you more than I say I'm sorry, but never forget that you're not perfect. And it's okay when you mess up or you do something that you shouldn't have done to stand tall and say, I'm sorry. And then you know what someone says back to you? Thank you. So that's the power of being us. That's my story. Hopefully it motivates you. Hopefully along the way that something in my message today has taught you or will allow you to share with another woman that there are challenges in life. And we don't become a Phyllis, a Linda, a Grace, a Joyce, or any of the other women in the room without standing tall, understanding that someone has given us the power to not be afraid and to use our mind and all along the way help someone else. Thank you. Now we have time for one quick, Phyllis, Linda, do we have time for one question? Thank you.
Lady, anyone? Any questions? No questions? Yes, yes. Iris, of course, I can always count on you.
Joyce, can you shed light on the whole fiasco with Planned Parenthood?
Yes. Let me just say that unfortunately in the world that I live in, living in Washington, I come home every week serving in Congress. We have people there that want to have government take over our rights as women on our reproductive system. So oftentimes they embellish, they don't get the facts straight, because just as one has to be careful with religion, there are things that we as women have to stand up and fight for, and that's the right of our bodies and what we want. And there's some, I'm going to just say it because we're friends and family here, there are some people who I believe are mean-spirited and they don't have the facts. They have put things out there that we certainly know is not true to Planned Parenthood. And Iris, what I'll do is I'll compare it to the Affordable Care Act. You know, how could you not want a person or a woman not to have health care? How could you want somebody not, who can't afford it, underinsured, uninsured, not to be able to go and get a mammogram or be able to have a mastectomy if she needs it to save her life? And now because of the Affordable Care Act, they can go to a Planned Parenthood, they can get good information, advice, counsel, referrals, and not even have to pay for it. Children, young girls can go and have a safe place to go and ask sexual questions. You know, I mean, even though we're in 2015, a lot of kids, they don't have that mother or grandmother or older sister or somebody at home. So there is comfort and safety in going to Planned Parenthood. They dislike, because I don't like using the hate word, they dislike Planned Parenthood so much that they want to destroy it. But thank goodness that there have been women who have fought hard, and thank goodness outside, external folks keep writing those letters, keep putting the color pink up, keep talking to us and demanding our right as women. And as long as I am there in Congress, we will continue to stand up and fight. And let me tell you the power of women. And I'm proud of this, and I'm not proud of this. In this country, we have had only one female in the history to serve as Speaker of the House in the United States Congress. Keep in mind that Speaker is the third most powerful person in this country. And no matter what your politics are, because this is not a political statement, it's a factual statement, Nancy Pelosi has done that. And but for her, the health care battles and the Planned Parenthood battles, we would not still have Planned Parenthood today. So we got the vote through, and they did not take the funding out of Planned Parenthood. But we are on a thin ice. So remember, we're still in the hallway. Thank you for that question.
Anyone else have a question?
The YCUP, thank you very kindly for all your encouraging words. The YWCA faces our own bold stance in an upcoming mission rollout. When you were pushing for the new woman on the $10 bill, what opposition did you face?
Well, it was interesting. First it started with, who do you want the female to be? And so, to me, that was up to the public, because I didn't come with a preconceived idea of who I wanted it to be. So, the strategy part of me said, let's figure out what bill is next in rotation. Let's figure out who's on a bill that America might not have a problem with replacing. And so two things happened. We went from the $20 bill, because there was a national movement by an organization then formed called Women on the 20. And so they got really out with Women on the 20, because everybody, we felt, would be okay replacing someone who wasn't representative of what we wanted the nation and the world to believe about America or people. Well, then we found out that the $10 bill, Jack Lew comes up and says, well, the next bill that's in rotation for change is the $10 bill. So then you have to answer your question, you have to say, is it more important to get a female on a bill, or is it to stick with what you started with? And for me, it was figuring out what my objective is. And my objective is to get a female on American currency. And I don't really care whether it's the 10 or the 20, but we're gaining momentum that it looks like we may go back to the 20, because a lot of people don't want to change the 10 because they want to keep it the way it is. But here's the good news about it. We're going to get a female on some currency in some fashion. We may not get everything we want, because ideally you've probably seen the fake $20 bills, and whether it was Eleanor Roosevelt or Harriet Tubman in the center. What passed, well, it really doesn't pass. What Jack Lew has the authority to do without legislation is, I will put the likeness of a female on currency. So that could be a watermark, that could be keeping a past president in the center and having shadows that are the likeness of a female. So here's the thing. You know, be strategic. That's a good start. Let's take that start. And it's been an uphill battle, but what has been amazing is the number of women who responded, wrote letters, took surveys, Democrat, Republican, African American, white, Asian, Hispanic, and other. So here we go. The unity and the power of women keeps it afloat. So we're going to get there. Okay, any last questions?
Jenny, we'll take one more, and this will be our last question.
And I'll give a shorter answer.
Thank you. My sister has taught me that women are the last great hope of this nation, and if we don't do it, nobody else will. I'm really concerned about the election and getting women to vote, because I run into so many women who are not voting.
We should be concerned, but it's our own fault. If we don't get out there and register women, this is a time in history, and I don't care what your politics are, you know, because if we don't get a female elected in this lifetime, and we can, and we have a great opportunity to do it, but first you have to be registered. You can't vote if you're not registered. So as females who are concerned and just want to make sure that our issues are taken care of, I think the best way to do that is to get women registered, make sure we get women to the polls, and to do a better education and awareness job. Because right now, if we take where we are in Central Ohio, more women are in the workplace, more women are highly educated in comparison to our counterparts. Now, we make less money, and we still work on more jobs and are more employed, and we go to college at a great number on a lesser salary. So that tells us we're performing in the hallway, and we're not even in the room, and yet our numbers are continually to increase. So it's education and awareness, because right now, we can't even elect the third person that's the highest person in Congress, in the U.S. Congress. Now, that wouldn't happen if Nancy Pelosi or any other female was in charge, because we would come together, whether we liked that female or not, but we would not embarrass this nation and this country. We would not have it over the entire nation and internationally that we can't get to 218 and elect the Speaker of the House. When you have women, if you look at across the waters, when you look at the number of women who are prime ministers and who are presidents in other countries, and here in our free world, the most revered country to be in, we can't even elect the Speaker. I ought to nominate a female, and I think we could get people on both sides of the aisle. That would scare the you-know-what out of them. So more engagement, more education and awareness, because people are in the hallway and they think, why should I vote? Why should I get engaged? Because I'll never get in the room. And that's why I tell the story of the hallway to the room. We've got to go out into our communities, and everything that you have on your agenda for in the 15 organizations and others is important, but none of it's important if we don't get more people to the polls to vote, because your voice doesn't count unless you vote. Thank you.
Let's thank Joyce again for being in the room.
Thank you, Joyce. Yes, keep the applause going. That was great.
I am here representing the American Civil Liberties Union of Ohio, and Women Have Options. And because we are nearing the end of time, usually we go through and have each table kind of introduce themselves. And I thought, you know, Ann had listed the co-sponsors at the beginning, and I just want to give another round of applause to everyone here and say thank you so much for supporting this luncheon, because it brings all of us together, and I know I love to see everyone once a year here and through our work throughout the year. So let's give a round of applause to all of our co-sponsors. And lastly, I just want to take 2 minutes. If you're a co-sponsoring organization, you have an event coming up or something you want to publicize and let us know, will you raise your hand? And I just want to take a couple minutes to do that.
I don't have an event, but I just want to ask all of the members of the Ohio Council of YWCA to please stand, and thank you for coming all over the state to attend the luncheon.
Thank you, guys.
The Zonta Club of Columbus has a wine event and at Cooper's Hawk on Thursday, November 5th, 6 to 9 p.m. It supports our programs, which support women and girls locally and worldwide. It's a lot of fun. Like I say, you can't never have a problem with a little wine and appetizers and everything. So it's really a good time.
I would like to, on behalf of Ohio Women Incorporated, which has been around for almost 40 years as well, and has traditionally tried to pull periodically the leadership of women's organizations from across the state together so that we can forge new coalitions and cooperate, and I can't get the other C word out, but collaborations. We are having a meeting on November 14th, Saturday from 11 to 2. It will be at the Upper Arlington Public Library. It's free, except we'll have box lunches, and that will be approximately $12. By the way, Ann is being very shy. She is president of OWI. But it's a chance to kind of follow through in the leadership that's here today, to look at planning something for Women's History Month and International Women's Day, or other events for 2016.
I have only one more task, and that is to thank all of you for coming and for your support of Action Ohio and its programs. But as you know, events like this don't happen without a lot of work behind the scenes. And in our case, this behind-the-scenes work is done tirelessly and constantly by our Executive Director, Phyllis Carlson-Ream. Phyllis is the heart and soul of Action Ohio, and none of us would be here without her. So Phyllis, please show yourself so we can thank you properly.
tremendous talk by Representative Joyce Beatty, who's a congresswoman from Columbus. And Alexa, thank you very much for taking this event of Action Ohio for Battered Women today, October 13th, 2015. We're going to have an important upcoming meeting, statewide meeting on November 14th.